Buckeye Talk back with our game time decisions for Ohio State's return from an off week to play Iowa Saturday at Ohio Stadium. I'm Nathan Baird, along with Stephen Means from cleveland.com. And these are the determining factors we think in this Big Ten game, although I think the determining factor for this game was probably the introduction of the forward pass several decades ago and the invention of transcontinental flight that brings quarterbacks from California to Ohio. But Stephen, what is your game time decision for the Buckeyes and Hawkeyes?
Yeah, it's
Battle of
kind
the
of
odds.
two. It's kind of twofold because it's on both sides of the ball, and it's about usage basically. Obviously, the big factor there is Jackson Smith-Njigba. Should he play as most of us expect him to do so against Iowa? One, how much should they use him in terms of is he going to be on any type of pitch count or anything like that? And if he's not, or even if he is, how does that maybe impact the way that they use Emeka Buka, the way they use Julian Fleming, and even Marvin Harrison Jr., even if he has been the unquestioned X receiver all day, when you've got all four of those weapons healthy, what does that passing game look like and how do they kind of rotate guys? While on the other side of the ball, it feels like every spot's been locked down outside of defensive line. You rotate, so that's obvious, and then they would like to rotate the corners if necessary. But the spots where it feels like one person should just have the job, that's the case everywhere. But at that bandit safety spot, where we've seen games where Josh Proctor started, didn't play well, and then Lathan Ransom took it over. But then we've seen games where Josh Proctor started, didn't come off the field, and then we saw vice versa against Michigan State. And as Jim Knowles is breaking down, a lot of it is because they don't necessarily have the same skill sets, but Iowa's offense isn't good at anything. So it doesn't really matter which one of them is out there. So is this the game where one who starts between those two? But then also, this is maybe something to pay attention to going forward is who starts, but then do we start to see one guy just lock that job down? Is it just Lathan Ransom's job going forward because he can bring so much more to the table? Or is this genuinely a situation where it's a week by week situation? And I think we might get an indication of which that is coming into this game, depending on who starts and who gets the majority of the meaningful snaps.
Yeah, if there's too many more games like Michigan State where Lathan Ransom just takes it and runs with it, I that would indicate to me that we're not looking at a week to
Mm-hmm.
week hot hand job share. That it might just be his gig now. I'm getting a little bit more specific into some portion of gameplay, and I think I've maybe even done this before on a game time decision, but it's something that I want to keep an eye on until it changes. I've been looking a lot at metrics, the Football Outsiders offensive line metrics. Ohio State is best in the country at several things. Like you can watch the bar across, and they've got like they're number one in several of the different metrics there, whether it's preventing sacks or just getting off the line well, those sorts of things. The one exception is what they call power success rate, which is how you do on 3rd and 2 or 4th and 2 or less, how often you convert those into first downs and touchdowns. And that was obviously a huge point of emphasis for Ohio State coming into the year because they felt like they didn't do well in that position last year. Ohio State's converting 72.7% of the time, which when you think about like 3rd and 2, 4th and 2, I think Ohio State would say it needs to be a little bit better than that, a lot better than that. Actually, that's tied for 43rd in the country with
It's not
Kent.
Iowa, is it?
It's Kent State. That's what I was laying one on
Hey,
us. That's not good. It's not good. That's
it's
like
good
the
for
one
Kent
thing where
State.
Kent State's equated with Ohio State.
Yeah.
So listen, Iowa's defense is a good Big Ten defense. I don't know if it's a defense that can actually hang with Ohio State. I think the proof will be in the pudding sometime Saturday afternoon. But I think Ohio State respects Iowa enough. I think there's enough fundamentally sound, solid play in this front seven that when these situations come up, Ohio State, this is another one of those weeks where they can prove that they can win those positions. They have back-to-back games where I think that's going to be the case. Iowa, Penn State. I do not think that's the case against Indiana and Northwestern. I think at least these next couple opponents, you have some respect for them at an almost national level on one side of the ball. I do not feel that way really about Indiana and especially Northwestern this season. And Ohio State is in a position where it has to kind of keep sharpening the blade a little bit against the Big Ten fodder, frankly, for lack of a better term, because it's looking at Maryland somewhat, but definitely Michigan at the end of the year. And it watched some games last week where it knows that when you get into a more talent equated game, teams are going to be able to move the ball on you now. And these 3rd and 2, 4th and 2 situations can be the game, can be your season. So something to keep an eye on Saturday. Get the text 614-350-3315. We'll be texting immediately Saturday morning when the Ohio State status report comes out, we will be texting pregame what we're seeing on the field from Jackson Smith and Jigba, Josh Hancock, if he's out there, everybody who's kind of on that borderline with the injuries. Anything we're seeing, hearing, that's where you'll get it from Buckeye Talk.